Yo! I'm back with the second video of the day, unexpectedly again. But given that this is just in according to Breaking 911, I wanted to cover this because I've read this and, how do I put this? This apology seems to be a bit different than from what actually happened. So I'm going to read it and then I'm going to break it down and give my opinions. First of all, even if I don't necessarily agree with the language used in this, and I do feel it was probably written by his publicist, right? I will give Will Smith credit for apologizing to Chris Rock. I will admit I don't necessarily believe the apology is entirely um, sincere. Again, I think it's one of those, career moves because no doubt his managers and his handlers have been watching how he's been clowned all day long with everybody talking about this and next to everyone taking Chris Rock's side, which is to be expected. So I'm going to go over this and give my opinions on what is being said here because in some sections of this, what happened and what Will is apologizing for seem to be very different, at least in my personal opinion, which in the end is all that I can give you. So let's get into it. Excuse me. So it says here, Justin, Will Smith apologizes to Chris Rock for Oscar's incident. Violence in all of its forms is poisonous and destructive. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. Let's see specifically what it says. So here's the first part. This is apparently from Will Smith's account. Right? Violence in all of its forms is poisonous and destructive. This is true. I actually had an online discussion earlier in the day about this. Right? Real world violence is destructive and it's harmful, and seldom does anything good ever come out of it. Right? Movie violence, sport violence, those are all very controlled situations. Right? There's a narrative, there's a story, there's a justification. Real world violence, even if it's something as relatively mild as a "I'm insulted" slap to the face, um, has real world consequences, which are oftentimes very destructive and self harming and harming to the other individual. So, yes, violence, real world violence, I would say, in all of its forms, is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. Absolutely correct. There are so many other things he and Jada could have done. If they were that pressed, if they were that insulted, they simply could have walked away. Just get up, leave, go to another room, go to the restroom, go home. Nothing was keeping either one of you there. If you were so offended, you just could have walked out. That would have made a much more impactful statement about how you felt about Chris's jokes than doing what you did, Will. Jokes at my expense are part of the job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear and I reacted emotionally. And here is the part where I call BS, and let me explain here. Right? He talks first of all about how jokes at his expense are, a part of his job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition is too much. Number one, there is nothing to indicate, right, that Chris Rock knew anything about Jada Pinkett Smith having alopecia. He has not said anything about knowing that. Nobody who's associated with him has said anything about that. Right? Even in this apology, there is nothing saying, and Chris, you knew she was sick or had so and so illness. As it stands, the joke itself was not about Jada's medical condition, as Heel vs. Babyface brought out in one of his videos about this earlier today. It was about her haircut. And again, I think it was silly. You can tell even when he tells the joke, right, that there's a sort of unease. People aren't really laughing. What's his face? Chris Rock is even like, hey, that was a good joke, right? He doesn't understand why the audience isn't laughing, right? But there's nothing to indicate that the joke, which was again about G.I. Jane, right? Because Demi Moore in that movie shaved her head, and yeah, they actually do have a very similar shaved haircut, right? Was about Jada's medical condition. Chris Rock never once says alopecia. He never makes a joke about her losing her hair because of alopecia. There's nothing to indicate he knew why she is wearing her hair this way. She's an actress. She's been around for many years, had many different hairstyles. It would not be untold or uncommon for an actress to go with short hair or to cut her hair for a role. What do you think Demi Moore literally did for G.I. Jane? She shaved her head. So this whole thing about Jada's medical condition or a joke about it is completely untrue from best I can tell. Nothing that has been presented publicly indicates that Chris Rock was joking about her medical condition. He was joking about her haircut. Now, her haircut is a result of her medical condition. I'm not saying that the two aren't connected. But there's nothing to indicate that he was aware of this. So it's wrong to say that it was a joke about Jada's medical condition. It wasn't. It was a joke about a haircut. I've had jokes about my haircuts, right? Especially when I cut it short. I've had plenty of people make jokes, kind and unkind, about it. It happens, especially if you're a black woman, you wear shorter hair. Everybody's got something to say. But anyway, that's the first part. The second part is where he says that he reacted emotionally. That's only part of it, Will. You're cutting out the second part, the part that everybody's upset about and clowning you for, which was your physical response. You reacted emotionally and physically. An emotional reaction is the part where he's yelling, keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth. That's the emotional response. The physical response is when he literally stands up, walks up there, so he has at least a few seconds to think about this. And keep in mind, Jada, from what we see, never tries to grab Will's arm or his hand, never tries to tell him to sit down or to not do this. We don't see her at all, either when he goes up there or when he comes back. We don't see her for 1 second chastise him or beg him not to do this, have any sort of alarmed expression on her face. Right? I've had to calm down angry dudes who were mad because someone said something about me and they wanted and they got mad and they want to fight. I'm like, dude, no. It's not worth it. So looking back on this, right, I find that surprising also that Jada doesn't do one damn thing to stop her very angry husband from doing something incredibly stupid and in public, no less. Right? So the part where he's yelling is the emotional response. But this does not in any way acknowledge, at least overtly, the physical response, which is what everybody is clowning him for, right? I think even in a court of law, he wouldn't have much of a case because it's not like it's a crime of passion. It's not like they're standing there right in the middle and they're arguing and it's escalating and they're insulting each other and then he slaps him. No, it's a mild joke. It's not terribly offensive. He's literally sitting several feet away. He decides to stand up, walk over there, slap him, come back. He only starts showing any real emotion once he's sitting down and screaming at him from across the way. So I think even if this went to court, which I doubt is going to happen because Chris Rock didn't press charges, but even that, I think in a court of law, that sequence of events, right, how Will physically acted and responded, would be seen more as an intentional act, right, an intentional act to commit violence, to commit simple assault, than necessarily a crime of passion where you just see red and you act without thinking. That's the way I view it, at least. Right, so I do find it funny that he says I reacted emotionally, but he doesn't acknowledge, at least not overtly acknowledge, the part where he acted physically and slapped the man in his face. Right? But he says here, I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. I am embarrassed and my actions were not indicative of the man I want to be. Fair enough. Fair enough. Right? He has kids. He no doubt, doesn't want to set a bad example. Granted, his kids are adults, but you don't stop being a father, and he's no doubt aware that this doesn't make him look good in anyone's eyes, not even Jada's. I highly doubt Jada is impressed. Right? But here's another part where I'm like, this is a bit different than what you said. There is no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. First of all, as much as I hate to break it to you, Will, the world is not a loving or kind place. And you've starred in plenty of films that are about the world not being a loving or kind place. Number one. Number two, from what I know, from what I've seen, you didn't say one word uh, when you were accepting your Oscar, which is maybe what's fueling this. You don't want to lose your Oscar, right? But from what I've seen during that acceptance speech, you didn't say one word about violence in the world, which is incredibly different than what you did here. But what you did here was an act of anger and cowardice and vanity and trying to white knight for your wife, who I highly doubt was all that impressed. But this isn't about violence in the world. You said yourself you as a person, you wanted to be a vessel of love, and how love makes you do crazy things and all of this other stuff. So I do find this funny that now, instead of acknowledging that you wanted to be a vessel of love, you now want to say that there's no place in the world for violence, or there's no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. To me, that's a bit disassociative, right? He's taking himself out, and now he's putting this very nebulous word, the world, in in his place, right? But anyway, that's part one. And part two, which is probably what really motivated this, I would also like to apologize to the Academy, the producers of the show, all the attendees, and everyone watching around the world. I would like to apologize to the Williams family and my King Richard family. I deeply regret that my behavior has stained what has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. I am a work in progress. Sincerely, Will. This is the professional actor version of the YouTube apology video classic, I was in a dark place. Right? We're all a work in progress. We're all flawed. No one denies that. That doesn't change nor excuse or justify what he did. Right? The thing is that he's apologizing, but I'm not seeing, and maybe I'm missing it, or maybe it's just my cynicism, but I'm not seeing him actually acknowledge what he did was wrong. It's these very general, nebulous terms. But he's not specifically saying, I was wrong to march up there and slap you. I was wrong to react the way that I did. Right? It, it's not exactly the same, because he is admitting some guilt in the first part, but it kind of reminds me in a way of like settlements in the law, where like it doesn't go to a jury and they just settle it, right? And usually what happens with a settlement is that both sides agree to drop it, but no one actually acknowledges any fault or any guilt. And again, it's not exactly the same, but that's the sort of vibe I'm getting from this. It's like he's trying to avoid admitting or acknowledging any guilt or any real wrong in any way as much as he can, while still giving an apology, which you can tell, at least in my opinion, that he's not truly sincerely sorry about. And what I find funny that he says that he wants to apologize to the Williams family. Right, Richard Williams is the father of Venus and Serena Williams, two very talented, legendary, hyper competitive, hyper aggressive female tennis legends. In particular, Serena. Serena's gotten in more trouble for doing this when it comes to tennis. Like, her outrages have become like McEnroe status of like legendary. So I don't think somebody having an emotional reaction to what they feel is wrong, or in Will's case, trying to prove his manliness to his wife, is necessarily new to them. Having to grow up with two daughters who are very sporty and athletic, and as somebody who was sporty and athletic, though never as talented as they were, sports will bring out the aggression and the aggressor in you. So I do find this funny. It's like, oh, they've probably been dealing with with Venus and Serena's emotional outbursts for all of their lives now. This probably doesn't surprise them all that much, right? Now, yeah, he probably does regret that his behavior stained what was otherwise a gorgeous journey, because there's been talk about taking his Oscar away, which I don't actually think they'll do. Again, that's why I think this apology is coming out. It's probably him trying to make amends more with the Academy and making sure he doesn't lose this Oscar than necessarily him making amends with Chris Rock. Maybe they'll make amends in private. Never say never. I've seen bandmates, Axel and Slash and other ones, hate each other for years and years and years, and then they come back together. So it's not impossible that the rift between Will and Chris can be mended. It's not impossible, especially in Hollywood, right? Where you have to work together, you have the glad hand and all this other stuff to get stuff done. So I think in time they'll be able to settle their differences. But yeah, this apology to me sounds like again, sounds a bit rehearsed. Sounds like it was, I don't know if it was reviewed by attorneys, but it does certainly seem like it was reviewed at least by a publicist. Seems a bit too rehearsed. And again, as I pointed out, certain things just seem to be quite different than how they played out